All right, let's go. If you're tired of not feeling fit, tired of just not having a focus, tired of just not getting the life that you deserve, this is your place to be. I'm Jason Yarusi. This is the Live 100 podcast. And today we're talking about it's report card time. So for you who have kids, right, you're going through the end of the year, they're getting their final reviews, potentially just in school for the last few days, and then they're going to get a report card, right? Well, how does that transition to your life? We get these points where life is treated in two ways, right? We go to school, and many times we're taught something and we're tested at the end. And then in life itself, many times we're tested and then we learn something. But we're so adapted to that life where ultimately we want to learn and know everything before the test comes. But for those of us and for those of you who have chosen that path to try to create perfection, which doesn't exist, before getting to the opportunity to have the test, you usually feel disappointed, you feel dejected, you feel stuck, right? Because you can't break out, you can't get the confidence to go forward. And in those who go out there and try and get tested daily, and then they learn something from that, well, then those in fact get to a point here where they have a clear idea of the possibilities that are out there, but also what they're made of. You have to be tested to learn. And that's where school many times gets it wrong, is that they want to have a plan of action, a course of curriculum, teach you how to go in there and what to learn to be tested on. But really, ultimately, the idea of learning comes from the test in hand. Now, for young ones and for part, we have to get guidelines and guardrails and understand that school has a great social mechanism, has many other ways to teach you to adapt for being around people, how to act, just how to respond, and how to learn in general. So school has a massive impact, especially when you're with a good school and have your kids at a good school. But you have to look at life itself and say that the test conjures what I will learn, and not what I will learn will create the test. When you think that through, you say, okay, well, that's a little counter active to how I was raised, right? And yeah, many of us, it says go get that safe job, which will give you some kind of surety, that will give you a weekly paycheck, that you'll get your 2 vacations a year, that ultimately you'll work at and stay at for the course of 30 to 35 years. And in fact, lo and behold, you retire, you get some severance package, maybe you get a watch, and you get this grand opportunity to go out there and explore the world. But for pretty much everyone now, that doesn't exist anymore. The surety of a constant paycheck is something that actually puts you more at risk, because one day you have a job and the next day you don't. Where in fact, if you're going out there and testing yourself and finding the ability to see what you're capable of, you go and you create opportunity, because what else is there? It's your chance or no chance. So it gets back to our report card. Here you are, your kids are getting their scorecard, they're getting graded in English, math, science, history, all the things. Well, when's the last time you gave yourself a report card? How are you showing up in your faith, in your finances, in your fitness, in your family, right? In your overall focus? Like, how are you showing up? If you had a report card today listing out your big bucket items, right? Your fitness, your family, your finances, your faith, right? Where are you? Are you straight A's? Are you D's and C's in some areas and A's in the other? Where are you in part of that report card? And what would it take to get you back to some weekly, monthly, yearly, quarterly analysis of yourself where, each quarter you give yourself a grade, and you could say where you're being weak at, and you could say where you're being strong at. And the point of this is that you have to be self-aware about how you're showing up. You have to look yourself in the mirror and say, you know what? I said I was going to go out there. I was going to get fit. I was going to get in shape. I was going to lose a few pounds. I was going to work out proactively. I was going to run twice a week. I was going to go to the gym 3 times a week. And for the last quarter, I got a D. I went 1, maybe 2 times a week when I fit it in, because I didn't make it a priority. Well, if you get real with yourself and you get real with what you are actually doing and how you're actually showing up, you know what's going to happen? Results are going to happen, because you're going to put yourself back in that spot. We leave school and all of our guidance, our guardrails are gone, right? You just go out into this world and people say, okay, good luck, just hope you can figure it out. And for many, they falter. Right? They fall over because they don't have the guardrails that were given to them so many years. You see kids when they go from, anywhere, kindergarten to middle school to high school with that adaptation to college, and college out into the real world. And it takes years for many people to get their feet under them, because they haven't set up a report for themselves about how they're showing up in each of their big blocks. So what can you do today to go and be your own accountability partner? You don't need anyone else. You need yourself. You need yourself to show up today and be critical of yourself, so you can get the results that you truly can produce day in and day out. All right, that's what I have for today. I'm Jason Yarusi. Why don't you go over to jasonyarusi.com? There's a free assessment. You answer a few questions, and it just lays out how you're showing up in a moment. That's what we all need. How are we showing up today just so we can get the results tomorrow? All right, let's do this.